Begin our meeting today with an invocation by Pastor Daryl Orman from First Baptist Church of Stuart, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you. I've got one of my grandsons with me today, Gabriel Quinn. We were dove hunting the other day, didn't see any doves for a couple of hours. And I said, Gabriel, pray for us. And he said, Bebop, that's what he called me. He said, Bebop, we don't have the right to ask him because he's the king. And then he said, we can't ask him because we're his servants. And then he said, oh God, please bring us more. And then three flew right by and we're out of distance. So praise God for the mouths of babes. Amen?
Amen.
Let's pray together. Father, we just want to tell you we love you today. And we thank you so much for the country you allowed us to be born in, that you chose for us. And oh God, we ask you if you would, please, to move on our nation and bring one more awakening before the consummation of days, before everything ends. Please, Lord, pour your Spirit out upon us and draw close to us. We pray, Lord, that you would be with our election in Georgia. And Father, if you would spare us from socialism, protect us, protect our nation, pour your Spirit out upon it. And on the state of Georgia today, please be gracious to us. And Father, we just want to tell you we love you and thank you for these commissioners. Ask you to be with them, dear God, and pour your Spirit out upon them today and every day as they deliberate. And Lord, in each one of them, just awaken and continue to inflame the patriotism in each of their hearts to be statesmen and stateswomen for this county and not politicians, Lord. Just pour your Spirit out upon them. And Father, again, we just want to tell you we love you. Thank you for your mighty Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
For you.
All right. On today's agenda, we have one additional item, consent number 9, adoption of a resolution approving and accepting a special warranty deed for the donation of a 6.89 acre parcel of environmentally sensitive land adjacent to the Kiplinger Nature Preserve from Fairview Properties. We have one consent agenda pool, and that is also consent number 9, the same that I just mentioned. And I will entertain.
Madam Chair, move approval of the agenda with the consent agenda and the poll of item 9.
Okay, we have
Second.
motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith for approval of the agenda, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to public comment. If you have not filled out a public speaker form, please do so and give it to the bailiff. Right now I have 3 public speaker forms. We have Amy Pritchett. Amy will be followed by Mike Connor.
Good morning and Happy New Year, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Very briefly, at the last meeting, the Commissioner representing my District 4 talked about a discretionary fund to buy some property next to Maggie's Hammock. I would like to know how much money is in that discretionary fund and how much was paid for the Maggie's property. I also wanted to appeal to the Commission again to reconsider the speed limit on Horseshoe Point Road to 25 miles an hour. I'm sorry.
No, can you hang on? We can't hear you, so it's probably not being recorded, whatever.
Is it not turned on? Sure.
Sorry about that.
I wasn't speaking loud enough?
No.
Oh, maybe the microphone.
Check 1, 2.
Oh, there you go.
I'm going to raise it up inside too. Sorry about that.
Is that better?
Yes.
Happy New Year, Commissioners. At the last meeting, the District Commissioner for District 4 talked about a discretionary fund and that some of that money was going to be used to pay for property adjacent to Maggie's hammock. I was curious to know how much is in that discretionary fund and how much was paid for the Maggie's property. I also wanted to appeal to the commission to reconsider the speed limit on Horseshoe Point Road to 25 miles an hour. As I stated at the last meeting, all the roads leading in are 25 miles an hour. And I was told away from the meeting that a professional made the decision that 30 miles an hour was okay. I had a conversation back and forth, and what I said was that I felt like 25 was more reasonable, and I was agreed with and told that if it didn't work out, we could revisit it. I then said, I've always learned to measure twice and cut once. I don't think 25 miles an hour is unreasonable, and I'm asking the commission to please reconsider it. I kind of feel like I'm in the Shark Tank here. I'm talking to 5 commissioners, and I'm appealing with my idea to change the speed limit to 25 for the safety of our neighborhood. It's a residential area. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mike Connor.
Good morning, Commissioners, and Happy New Year to all of you. I'm Mike Connor. I'm Executive Director of Indian River Keeper, our local water advocacy group. I want to bring something to your attention about a fishing closure on one of our most popular fishing bridges and causeways, the Jensen Causeway. I want to thank Sarah Hurd, Commissioner Hetherington also for getting back to me so quickly yesterday when I brought it to your attention. And I did discover that probably none of you were aware that Florida Department of Transportation closed that bridge. Both the east relief, the west relief, even the main bridge, where no one really fishes from the top anyway. It's closed kind of under the cloak of darkness. I don't understand what happened. I did have a good conversation with John Deemer at the Fort Lauderdale office, and he explained to me that there were so many complaints about trash, obstruction of transportation, people walking, that they had no choice but to close the bridges. And he told me it was a 2-year period of gathering input on the problems on those bridges. And I'm the first one to admit there's problems with trash, fishing trash. People do. Fishermen, I'm a fisherman. I pick up after my fellow fishermen when necessary. But there's been some trash problems there, but I'm a little bit concerned that they could just close that kind of bridge so quickly without any public input, any deliberations, any public meetings, nothing of the sort. So I'm going to ask you, and John Deemer, and I gave you his card, Stacy, he did say that he'd be willing to take the signs down and give it a chance if the county commission would agree to enter a partnership of sorts with a civic group, residents, a group like mine, to give it a shot and try it again and see if the situation will improve. So I have, again, a good conversation. Ed Killer had a great story this morning in TC Palm about the bridge's history, the iconic need for that bridge. I won't go into that. Ed's article covered it very well. So what I'm asking you to do is consider this, speak with Mr. Deemer, entertain the thought of entering a contract and agreement. Indian Riverkeeper would be very willing to be part of that agreement, to police the bridge, to educate fishermen, to make it a visible problem, and let the people know that have lost that bridge that you may get it back, but you'll lose it again should you not improve the situation. So I'm the first one to say the responsibility has to increase, and I'd be happy to be a spokesperson for this effort. So if you would talk to Mr. Deemer, get me in a conversation. If you were willing to do this, I would take it back to my board of directors and get an okay to actually be part of the contract. I don't know any other way to do this, but we just can't lose this bridge and this public access. And I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And if you just stick around a moment during, following our last public speaker, we can discuss this during commissioner comments. Okay, our last speaker form of the day is Cheryl Schwackert. Did I get that right?
No. Good morning.
Good morning.
First, I would like to start the meeting off with apologizing to the officer who had to pick up the mask last week or the week before from the clean bags holding non-hazardous masks. I apologize to you personally. Like I
Sure.
said, if they were dangerous, there would be biohazard bins everywhere. Therefore, no one in the room was at any risk, as I was falsely accused of doing by bringing the mask bagged up. I'm only sorry for disrespecting the officer that day. I'm here to tell you that you have slandered me by putting words in my mouth. I would never fear the Martin County Police. You sent me a letter stating that I said, I do not wish to be assaulted with a deadly weapon. False. False. What I said was, I didn't want to get it for assault with a deadly weapon, meaning you're all scared of the mask. I'm not afraid of police officers. They protect me. I back them 2,000%. I would never talk to an officer anyway with disrespect. And I didn't even talk to an officer that day except to say, I'm sorry, so stop putting words in my mouth that I would never say. You were all quick with defamatory and slanderous accusations. Will you be as quick with a public and a written apology? Really upset today. I know I have still time left. I don't know if I have any more to say on this. I want to thank Stacy for contacting me. I'd like to thank Amy for helping me get in contact with Stacy. I don't know what's going to be done about this, but it doesn't say who I am. None of you know who I am. My yard is full of signs to back the blue. I'd stand in front of that police officer and take a bullet for him. That's how I feel about the police. You people have put words in my mouth to make my officers think I don't respect them. And I do respect my officers.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, that's the last public speaker forum I have today, so we will move on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Jenkins.
One, Happy New Year to everybody from District 3. Our Hope Sound Scrub Preserve project is moving right along and should be complete soon. And we are adding exercise equipment to the paths, and I will be
Leading it?
yeah, okay. Yeah, let's go with that. I'll also be paying for that equipment out of my district funds. It's $24,390. And that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you want to have that conversation now, or do you want to wait until we're all
Sure, kick it off.
get off? So, Mike Connor got up and talked about the condition of Jensen Beach Causeway, and I guess FDOT has closed it. Mike, I too did not know that they had done that to fishing anyway. But I will share with you that for as long as I have sat here, it has been a disgusting mess, and the people that frequent the bridge really could care less about Jensen Beach because they leave it an absolute pigsty. So the complaints are valid. Which sad and unfortunate, they catch fish, they leave them to die on the sidewalk, and then they leave them there to bake in the sun. They leave their shrimp out there, they leave their line out there, they leave their barricans out there, they leave their dead fish out there, they leave their trash out there. It's awful. But Rufus reached out to me over the weekend. I haven't gotten back to him. I was actually going to get my assistant to put something in writing to him this morning, thanking him for his offer to volunteer to help clean and to maintain the bridge in a better condition than it's in. Good luck with all that. Volunteers have tried in the past. This is not the first rodeo on this. This is long before I think you and I have ever met that this has been going on, and there have been multiple folks in your capacity, not in your capacity per se, but to come up and volunteer to want to help clean, and that effort has never followed through and never has amounted to a successful transformation of people's habits. But we are welcome that if Rufus and you and others want to lead the charge and put together a volunteer group to go out there and clean and maintain, that'd be fantastic from the residents of Jensen. I mean, it's bad enough that we've had people through the years that refuse to walk their kids over the bridge. They won't use the bridges as they do in Palm City because Palm City keeps theirs clean. They don't fish off of it. It's really an eyesore, and that's a problem. And so I'm sure the residents of Jensen would very much look forward to you all stepping up and doing that because it goes on all year long, and it's a huge problem. It's a disgusting enough problem, like I said, that our residents won't in Jensen even use the bridge because both they're intimidated, it's disgusting, and they just don't do it. So we look forward to your help to go out there and maybe change the habits. But I certainly, I guess the others that you reached out to also didn't know. I had no clue that there was even some kind of a survey going on or a study going on relative to a 2-year process or whatever that FDOT was trying to decide whether or not they should limit the fishing or not. So good luck with that. And for those of you who don't live up there, I don't know what your feelings are about it, but it is awful. And so it may be a nice sympathetic sort of conversation to have this morning. But I will tell you, living there and having for years walked that bridge, it's a pigsty, and there's no reason for it. There's no absolute. I mean, we've talked engineering, and I'm sure the agreement that FDOT would like to do with us is that they would be more than happy for us to take over the maintenance of the bridge and the responsibility of all that. We have talked to our staff about that many times over, and it's an expensive task. And it's just a shame that it even has to be a task. We also have a problem with folks walking their dogs because their dogs also leave behind their stuff, and they don't pick it up, and so you also get to deal with that on the bridge as well. So I'm sure you're all very sympathetic to the phone call and to the reach out, but I think you need to go experience it for a year or so and see how much you'd like that in your backyard, what goes on out there. Sorry about that, just kind of pretty curt on that whole idea. Other than that, it was a great New Year, and it's good to be back in here. Thank you all.
May I just, it sounds like you have, in addition to fishing, which, I think we all want public access open for fishermen, it sounds like you have some additional problems with dogs and that are not fishing related and debris as well.
Probably 10% of the problem, maybe 5% of the problem.
So in the past, with the volunteer organizations like Mr. Connor had offered, how has that been implemented? And is that something that we want to?
People have gone out there and offered to help clean. There was a lot of discussion 6 months ago or so about putting trash barrels out there because the county wasn't doing anything to help, at least if people were willing to pick up, so we put some trash barrels out there. That's helped a little bit, but the real problem is really on the east end of the causeway where the flat bridge is, where people do predominantly their fishing, and they just leave their stuff behind. They just don't care. I mean, it's amazing how bad it is.
It's concerning to me that apparently none of us realized that the DOT was putting up signs. If none of us up here, who did they notify that they were taking this? Maybe they don't have to notify us.
I don't know.
We'll find out.
I think it's definitely worth looking into. Absolutely. Did you have
I know.
Commissioner Camping?
Thank you very much. Happy New Year. Couple of points. I'd like to tag on to what Commissioner Smith was saying. When I first received the emails it's a classic example of we're hearing one side of the story, that the FDOT, I didn't even realize it was FDOT, I just saw the signs. I knew that they were out of my district, so I let the district commissioners handle most of the time their specific issues. But then hearing Mike from the River Keepers, thinking, okay, that's an excellent suggestion. And then hearing from Commissioner Smith, I think it's similar to litter in general. Keep Martin Beautiful goes through a lot of this. People that adopt roads, that are nice enough to adopt roads in our community. I think the disconnect is that what Mike is offering, what our staff would have to do, is the same thing as parents we wouldn't do at home. If your children are completely making a mess, you can't swoop in behind them and clean up the mess without educating the children, because then all we're doing is creating a service for it allows these folks that are disrespecting this opportunity that's been presented to them to throw the stuff around. I think what we should probably do, and I understand the organization with the River Keepers, but even their ability to participate, our staff's willingness to participate, volunteers that are willing to participate will run out of patience for cleaning up people's messes. So what I'd like to potentially see as a suggestion would be some very specific signage that discusses the rules of taking whatever you... Yeah, no, I understand. And then maybe since the closing and the prohibition of the fishing as an option came up quickly, I get that there was a 2-year process before they reached that decision, but when they reached it, it came down. Maybe we do a 90-day test and explain to these people that this is on them, because it's not fair to the River Keepers or any other volunteers to just come in and clean up people's mess. If these people don't know how to conduct themselves like mature members of our community, then I have no problem that the FDOT would close fishing to that organization, because you can't appease one group at the detriment for the other folks that might, like Commissioner Smith, you said. In Palm City, people are walking over the Veterans Memorial Bridge. We have some litter issues on the bridge. Some people carry little bags and pick stuff up, but we're talking about picking up maybe an empty plastic bottle or some paper. We're not talking about dead fish, bait, fishing line, hooks, stuff that you wouldn't let your kids handle. So I would do a 90-day test, maybe in collaboration with the River Keepers or whoever else might be interested in participating. And if it feels like you're fighting an uphill battle, then I would go back to the same strategy of maybe for a year, close it down. It is an opportunity. I've driven that bridge and seen tons of people fishing. I know that they also fish on the old Roosevelt Bridge. And if these issues, not just on the causeway, if these are issues countywide, people have to understand that we don't owe you that opportunity to fish there. And if you're going to treat it like disgustingly, then it's over. That's the comment for the bridge. The conversation that we had last week, or at our last meeting on the area in Rocky Point about the speed limits, I know that there was Amy and another woman were very instrumental in trying to figure that out. I have the utmost confidence in our staff, but if there is the possibility that this could be 25 or 30, I'm leery of a let's wait and see if this works strategy, simply because if it doesn't work, it could have dire consequences. If the example of it didn't work as a child being hit or someone else being hit by a car, I know that in the community that I live in, Palm City, it is 25. People obviously still speed past that, but I think everybody has like a rational amount of speeding they're willing to do. So if it's 30, maybe people are doing 35. And if it's 25, maybe they're doing 30. I'm not a traffic engineer expert, but we have them. So I'm not demanding that our staff do that, but if there is an opportunity for consensus with the folks that live on those streets, and staff has the ability that it's not legally held responsible to leave it at 30, I would personally be interested in seeing that conversation continue. on behalf of the residents that live on those streets.
I just chime
Thank
in
you.
while you're on that conversation?
Sure.
Yes.
So I after the last commission meeting, and that was raised, that discussion was raised, I talked to Lisa Wixer about it. And for those of you who have been through this or not been through this, there are reasons why we can't just arbitrarily go from 30 to 25. It seems pretty straightforward that you should be able to do so, and if that's what the county wants to do. It's not. We had an instance years ago out in Palm City. Actually, we've had a couple, I think, in the years I've been doing this, but the one I remember the most was in Palm City, I think on South Map Road, where the residents came in and wanted us to take it down, I think from 45 or 35 down to 25, and put a stop sign in, and engineering couldn't or wouldn't certify that without the county commission voting to do that, basically removing the liability from the engineer's license in the engineering department and throwing it back on our behalf. Those changes lasted for about 3 weeks, I think, and then the community came back and said, we don't want it, and take it out, and take the stop sign out, and change the speed limit. More importantly, though, the conversation I had with Lisa was that maybe what we should do, and I think so everybody understands what we can do and what we can't do or shouldn't do, is have a discussion on that, and then look at all neighborhood roads and see if there's not a better way, because all of us in our district, every district has neighborhood roads where people are driving too fast through them, and we're all trying to come up with traffic calming something to slow people down. But maybe it would be helpful from a speed limit perspective to talk about restructuring all of our neighborhood roads and how we classify our neighborhood roads, so that engineering has the ability to do that, and look at the entire county in terms of how we assign those speed limits to neighborhoods, just as a thought.
That's a good idea. Commissioner Camping?
Well done, thank you.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, I'm perfectly willing to have the conversation about further reducing the speed limit on Horseshoe Point Road. We have had solutions in the past that haven't worked. Commissioner Smith, you'll remember that residents about 15 years ago demanded that we put speed bumps on Horseshoe Point Road in order to slow down the traffic. And
Actually, if I can interrupt, I remember that was one of the first things you did.
yeah,
And I remember that was one of the second things you did and removed them.
Absolutely. At considerable expense, we filled the Port Salerno Civic Center with a couple hundred people demanding that we put those speed bumps in. So I did. They cost $10,000 a piece. And then a month later, we filled the Civic Center again with 200 more angry people demanding that we take those speed bumps out, which we did.
You did.
So this has been a chronic problem. Ms. Pritchett is right. 35 miles an hour is too fast on that road. So the engineering department, they compromised at 30, plus they're putting in 2 new stop signs at the intersection of Horseshoe Point Road and Robertson. And my hope is that those new stop signs, in addition to 30 miles per hour, will considerably help. However, 25 is probably the right speed limit on that road. It's a real straight stretch and it's long. So after the people blast through the stop sign, they're going 45 by the time they get to Cuban. They absolutely are. And the thing that's really frustrating is that they're our neighbors. There's nobody else in the neighborhood. It's just Rocky Pointers who are the ones who are making our lives miserable. So I would be willing to have that conversation. If we could, maybe we should go ahead with the interim measures of the stop signs and 30 miles an hour, and then let's have an agenda item about local roads and talk about what is the appropriate speed limit in these purely residential neighborhoods. Because you're right, there are places where that is way too fast. And so that's my comment about that. And my comment about the bridge is that I'm completely supportive of Mr. Connor and other volunteer groups to somehow partner with FDOT in order to educate, clean up the bridge so that it's reopened for fishing, because I know that's important. However, I will defer to the district commissioner, because you're the one who knows more about that situation than any of us.
So will I,
Well, thank you for all that. That's great.
on that issue.
No, I need everybody to appreciate that it's 365 days a year. It never stops. And Mike, I'm more than happy for you and Rufus to get together and figure out if there's a volunteer group that wants to go out and educate. And the problem you have, you get a lot of seasonal people that come in for the winter that don't live here and don't care, that fish out there. And so the rules don't apply to them. They come, they go. You know, I literally, for a couple of years, I walked that bridge every single day, 6 days a week, at least. And very rarely saw the same people. Sometimes there were, but not. It wasn't like there were 20 people that you would see every single and say, "Hey, I've seen you 100 times before." And so the challenge is you can educate 20, but the problem is you got 100 more that you don't know who they are, where they're coming from, and they don't care either. So it would be wonderful to fix the problem. I hope you can. FDOT has tried, FWC has tried. They've gone out there, put up signs. They've tried to talk to fish. I know they have. They've called me years ago and said, we're willing to go out there and talk to people. But the real problem is it's 365 days a year. It's not a 1 month and done kind of a thing that's going to, to educate 50 people, and then those 50 people are going to take on the responsibility and teach the next 50 people that come along, because they just don't care about it. Anyway, so we got a lot to figure out on that one. Thank you.
So we're clear on direction.
I have one more comment on that.
Commissioner Camping.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear, we're using the word educate. Excuse me, we're talking about grown-ups for the most part. We're not talking about educating. People don't need to be educated that if you make a mess, you clean it up. It's enforcement. I don't know if there are penalties or fines for littering. I know there are, but it's not education, it's enforcement. If people leave their stuff behind, we can't expect people, hey, look, we don't want you to leave your stuff. These are grown-ups. They understand you're not supposed to leave. School children know you're not supposed to litter, and if you make a mess, you're supposed to clean it up. So I want to be clear that I'm not saying that we have to go out there and say, hey, listen, I appreciate that you guys are fishing here. Please don't leave your stuff. It's got to be, if you leave your stuff here repeatedly and folks that are good-natured have to come in behind you and clean up your mess, you won't be able to come here and fish anymore. Because education is what you do for children that don't know any better. Grown-ups know better. They just are careless or selfish adults. And I don't think you can educate people away from careless and rude behavior, most likely.
It sounds like the district commissioner is going to work with.
Use a hammer.
Did you have your light on, or is that an old light? Okay, go ahead. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one more thing to Sarah's thing on our stop signs. I would absolutely encourage you to reach out to the Sheriff's Department, because we had to put one on Skyline because we had 4 really horrific accidents within the span of about a year and a half up there, and it just, whatever. So we put stop signs in, and as one of the reasons why we don't use stop signs, because people go right through them because it's their neighborhood and they think that there's nobody coming. So the sheriff did put off and on up there for a good month, a deputy up there, and that sort of kind of helped. But I live on that corner and I still see people go straight on through, and it's just like stop sign, that doesn't apply to me. So I reach out to the sheriff and make sure that when you put those in, that you get a good month or month and a half worth of off and on enforcement, because the worst part is, and this is why engineering doesn't like to do stop signs like that, because the worst part is people think that the other people are going to stop and they don't, and so they start to proceed, and then the person that blows through the stop sign nails them. Anyway, so for whatever it's worth.
Okay, and on my list, number 1, I would like to thank Knight Kiplinger and his group for their donation, which is on today, of the 6.8 acres. And if you're not familiar with that, that is at the base of the Veterans Memorial Bridge in District 2, so we really appreciate it, and connects with the Kiplinger Preserve. So the hope is that, that preserve can be expanded, potentially, that parking lot is always filled to the brim with walkers of the bridge. So it's a fantastic addition, and the intent and the language, I believe, which was included, it was always to be, that's preservation property. And I saw somewhere on social media, that someone had questioned whether the commission might take that property and build a high-rise, and that is absolutely never the case. In fact, I believe there's a language that specifically prohibits that. So we are so thankful to Mr. Kiplinger. I know that many of us had that conversation with him. So I just wanted to, again, thank him publicly for that donation. The second thing on my list is I had received a phone call or two from a contractor saying, what if we could get our questions during the bid process answered like this, or, who might we provide those suggestions to regarding the bid process? So I, of course, always direct him to our purchasing, which they speak very highly of our purchasing manager. So that's always nice to hear as well. So I know that you all have done this in the past prior to me being on the commission, have a forum on how to do business with Martin County that involves the contractors, and if they have questions on how to do business with Martin County, then they can be answered. If they have suggestions on things that might be tweaked during the purchasing process, then I think that's a fantastic idea. And again, I know you've done those in the past, and I think that would be a helpful thing for all of us to do if our fellow commissioners agree. Okay. Great.
You can videotape it so that for people afterwards can still see it.
They can, right, then they have a guide, and if they have constructive things to bring up, or, or they can understand why Martin County does the things they do. Okay, and then coming up, we have a couple Martin Luther King events kicking off on Friday, January 15th in Hope Sound at Flash Beach Grill. And then Martin Luther King Picnic in the Park on Saturday, January 16th at New Monrovia Park from 12 to 6 p.m. We have Sunday in the Swamp, Martin Luther King, at Booker Park in Indiantown. So there's something in every area. Martin Luther King celebration on Monday, January 18th. That's going to be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Guy Davis Park in Stewart. So I encourage you to participate in some of those events, and that's all I have for today. And Miss Krista.
No, ma'am.
Miss Woods? Okay. With that, we have a consent poll that we'll go ahead and take. It's consent number 9, and Commissioner Hurd.
Yes, I pulled this item simply because I agree with you that it deserves more fanfare than being approved, uncommented on in the consent agenda. As I said last week, acquiring conservation lands, valuable lands that are isolated is good, and aggregating them with other conservation lands makes them great. And this donation is much appreciated. It's wonderful habitat. It will be an extraordinary addition, and I just like for staff to elaborate more on this generous gift.
Great. Good morning, Carla.
Good morning, Carla Segura, Real Property. Happy New Year. This request is for the adoption of a resolution approving and accepting a special warranty deed for donation of the 6.89 acre parcel adjacent to the Kiplinger Nature Preserve in Stewart from Fairview Properties. The Nature Preserve consists of approximately 116 acres and was acquired using funding from the Florida Communities Trust. And in addition, Kiplinger donated approximately 41 acres of island property within the St. Lucie River. The preserve is a popular location and destination for the nature hikers and people that walk the Veterans Memorial Bridge. There's a map on page 78 of the agenda that shows more particularly where the property is. which is between the preserve area and the Veterans Memorial Bridge. In August of 2020, representatives from the property approached the board regarding the donation and the critical conservation nature of the property. This donation represents a great opportunity to preserve the land and the habitat. The parcel is more than 2 acres of dry uplands with slash pines and saw palmettos, and it slopes down to almost a 5-acre wetland area with mangroves along the St. Lucie River. The addition will create new recreational possibilities for the property. Real Property researched the property and the title, and there's a survey on the property, so no further due diligence was needed in acquiring this property. We ask that the board adopt a resolution accepting and approving the special warranty deed with an effective date of December 30th of 2020 and authorize the chair to execute any and all documents. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hurd, thank you for pulling it. I agree with you. Donations and opportunities like this should be celebrated. I remember when Mr. Kiplinger had brought up the fact that he was interested in doing something like this. And, his history and his family's history of conservancy is solid. So it wasn't meant to be anything but that. As it was mentioned in the comments, there's very few places to park on the Palm City side, District 5, close to the bridge for the amount of people that like to walk it or run it or push baby strollers or whatever. And a lot of folks had been overwhelming the very small parking lot that exists currently. So I know that our staff will be able to create additional parking that's still within the enhanced kind of natural vibe, not a big paved out parking lot. So that will make it a lot safer for the people that have been utilizing the Veterans Memorial Bridge. And then it'll also open up, and hopefully another point for that I appreciate Commissioner Hurd bringing this up is that even the existing preserve area has a beautiful walking path through there that can take you right down to the river, and there's not a lot of places in the center of Stewart and Palm City to have that opportunity. Now, we're not trying to over-promote it so that it's like Central Park, but I think it's been dramatically underutilized, and the handful of times that I was convinced by family members that we should walk it, it was worthwhile. It's a very pretty area. It's a nice walk. It's not, you don't have to be a triathlete to do it. It has a natural sort of a start and circles back around, so I would encourage people to do that. And then I'd also like to compliment you, Ms. Segura. In my conversations with Mr. Kiplinger, he specifically told me that it was a pleasure to work with you, that you were very professional, and that he appreciated how the process went with you and our legal staff as well, but he specifically wanted me to know that you did a remarkable job. So thank you very much on behalf of the Commission.
Thank you. Ms. Woods.
Yes, it's great that the agenda item was pulled also from the legal standpoint. Mr. Kiplinger asked that some additional language be added. If you look at your monitors in the second whereas clause of the resolution accepting it, the request was that we add the language "and delivered to Martin County on December 30th, 2020. That's really just to make clear that the deed was delivered to Martin County prior to the first of the year, and we, of course, agree with that change. And so my request would be that when you approve the resolution, it's with that additional language highlighted in the yellow. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Campy.
Madam Chair, since you are the chair and can't make motions, I know this is in your district, I'll do it for you. I'd happily make a motion that we accept agenda item consent 9 with staff's recommended language that the special warranty deed was executed on December 29th and delivered to Martin County on December 30th of 2020 by Fairview Properties, and with our thanks.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. Commissioner Smith, do you have comments?
Just a quick question. Ed, do you know, or Stacy, do you know, so have we looked at a site plan in terms of parking and what the plan is?
I do. I remember that when we first had this conversation, we had some staff, an agenda item, was it the beginning of 2020? They talked about a couple of different options there, and I think that there was some, at least conceptual ideas put in place, but nothing that's been defined. But I know that it was like Christmas morning when you're given this amount of property in this valuable location. There's several really great possibilities that staff had contemplated. So,
Unfortunately, it looks like the upland is closest to the road,
correct.
which is good.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was-
it was more just a practical thing
Yes.
about
so the
the,
answer is yes.
like a turn lane, decel lane, and I don't know what the requirements are in relationship to the bridge, you know, in the intersection, how close can you start having a turn lane coming off the bridge, but I'm sure all of you have traveled that length, and by the time you hit that light, people are flying through there. So, I guess we need to start communicating with FDOT and talking to them about if there's a way to get, if we're gonna put more parking there, because there's also, what separates the new property from the old property is that there's a drainage canal, ditch, whatever, that separates, so it's not like you're gonna be able to have those joined together. You're gonna have two separate driveway entrances, I think. Maybe not, however, but anyway, we gotta start figuring out how that's gonna work.
Yes, we're on it.
Got it.
And we have walked the property, had a chance to walk the property, and I agree with you that I think even when there was a additional agenda item not related to this parcel, we had talked about a turning lane in there because it is an issue all up and down Canner Highway. So I think that's something we definitely should look into as well, the turning lane. So, okay. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Canby, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to board and committee appointments. This is Donna Gordon, Community Redevelopment Agency member appointments, and chair and vice chair designations.
I don't. I'll give it to you. Yeah, I'll take it out, break it. Stick that in there.
Did you use your voting sheet?
Right there.
I don't know.
Did you need mine? Maybe not.
Uh-oh. Donna looks like she's tallying the votes. Everybody submitted their voting sheet, right?
Did you want to vote for someone for Old Palm City and at large?
I'm sorry.
He's new. Still getting the hang of it.
Thought I saw an extra set of ballots around here too. Blank ballots.
I gave him back. I saw a mask that has a flap you can push food up into.
That's
Who's
what
that
you
guy
need.
down there? Didn't say food.
Yeah. Just one.
Only one.
One for here and one for him.
As Commissioner Campbell said, I think he's new to this.
I'll be in trouble for that.
That's okay.
I won't get a couple votes.
That makes sense?
That's okay.
All right, so
Okay. Okay, so you want,
Now she's gonna tally the votes.
okay,
Nothing like being on the spot.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
Whole world is watching.
Okay, for Donna Gordon for the record. For Golden Gate, there was 2 applicants, and Mrs. Sadia Safaridis received, what's my tally? 5 votes. For Jensen Beach, the only applicant is Cynthia Hall, incumbent. Old Palm City, there was 2 applicants, and Dr. Rex Sintel received 5 votes. Rio, Michael Riedling, the incumbent, is the only applicant, and at large, any of the above that didn't have the most votes were eligible to serve as at large, including incumbent Rich Kennedy, and Mr. Rich Kennedy received 2 votes, and that was the most.
Okay.
So, do you want to do it with 2?
Can you tell us who the other people that got votes in that category were?
They were Ms. Jacqueline Vitale for Golden Gate, Mr. Chuck Smith for Old Palm City, and Mr. Chandler Josie or Jose, I don't know which, for Port Salerno.
So do you want to vote
You want to revote?
again with a majority?
I mean, we can take the 2.
It's weird that just one extra vote gets you the spot. Maybe we should.
Oh, can we
A
ask?
lot of applicants.
Is anybody interested in revoting?
No.
Then I'll move approval of the 3 above and the 1 at large. Is that right? 4 above or 3?
Mrs. Sadia Safaridis, Dr. Rex Sintel, and Mr. Rich Kennedy.
Move approval of those, and then the at large, which is
Mr. Rich Kennedy.
That's Kennedy.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And your
Wait a minute.
last-
Wait. I have to recuse myself for Michael Banis. Was he part of that?
No.
But we're accepting him. He didn't have any opposition for Hope Sound, right?
Not on that list.
He's not on the list.
Okay, then I'm good.
Is he being board CRA appointments?
Never mind. He wasn't on the, I should have, never mind.
And I'm sorry, the motion should also include, please, Cynthia Hall for Jensen Beach and Michael Riedling for Rio. Yeah.
Okay,
Wait.
so
Yes. I would make a motion to confirm Michael Redling from Rio and Cynthia Hall from Jensen Beach to also join or continue to stay on the CRA board.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And we're asking that the board appoint the CRA chair and vice chair.
Who are the candidates?
All of them. Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't understand why they wouldn't amongst themselves pick their chair and vice chair. Why would they leave that to us
The
to
way
do?
you all approve the ordinance.
I would agree with Commissioner Campy.
Elizabeth Lenahan, County Attorney's Office. It's actually a statutory requirement that the governing body of this board select the chair and vice chair for the CRA.
Okay, may I make a suggestion then that we ask the board to come forward with their recommendations that we can then vote on next week?
can I
Just as a suggestion, because we'll still make the determination, but they could give us a suggestion.
We can do that. It won't be next week. It would have to be probably at your meeting in February, so we can get those recommendations at the CRA meeting in January.
Is this a time-sensitive issue?
No.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, Ed, I appreciate that, but I think what I'd like to see us do, and I think with most boards, I'd like to see us move our vice chair up to chair. And then I would move that we move that Cynthia Hall become chair and that Sadia Safaridis becomes vice chair.
I like both of those people, but I just feel odd that I don't know what the...
It's just rotating people through, Ed. I mean,
Where'd you Sadia had been chair recently. I like her very much. She's a talented, and smart person, but I don't know the dynamic of the people on that board, if they think that's a good idea or a bad idea. That's why, I mean, I can make a decision, but I would have preferred that the people on the board told us that. I mean, maybe it's exactly what Commissioner Smith just said, but we're just going to decide, just like that.
Commissioner Hurd.
I agree with Commissioner Campy. I prefer that we get the recommendation from the CRA.
Commissioner Smith's point makes perfect sense. And maybe they see it makes perfect sense as well. But
So what if you don't agree with their recommendation? What are you going to do then?
this is the CRA board. They'll have to work with each other and get along with each other.
I get that.
What if some of them don't like the decision we make as outsiders? That's
So there's lots of people that don't like
Yeah.
decisions we make as outsiders.
right.
Susan Coors.
Good morning. Susan Corey's Manager, Office of Community Development. The Board of County Commissioners has always appointed the chair and vice chair of the CRA. And like Commissioner Smith said, we are looking to rotate people through those positions to give everybody an opportunity. Cindy Hall would be the next obvious choice to be chair, as she has served vice chair for the past year. We have several folks on the board that have not served as vice chair or chair who might want to be considered for vice chair. So I would just point that out to you if you are interested in appointing today, to look at some of those other folks as well.
Well, that's why they should make that determination, because even the list that we're looking at, Old Palm City Mark Palazzo is not currently going to be on the board. It's Dr. Rex Santel now.
Correct.
Are the rest of the names accurate?
So it will be Cindy Hall for Jensen, Mike Banas for Hope Sound, Rex Santel for Old Palm City, Mike Redling for Rio, Sadia for Golden Gate, and who am I missing?
Richard Kennedy at large.
I'm sorry? Oh, and Catherine Winter for Port Salerno. And Richard Kennedy would be our at-large member again.
This is the only change.
Right.
Who's been there the longest? Do you know? That hasn't been a vice chair.
People who have not yet been vice chair or chair would be Michael Banas, Michael Redling, and Rich Kennedy.
How about Rex Santel?
He's just coming on.
Rex Santel's joining the board now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. He's the chair of Old Palm City NAC.
Well, let's do this then. I'll amend my motion. At this point, why don't we make Cynthia chair? And we'll send back to the CRA for them to send a recommendation to us for vice chair.
Second.
Great. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously.
That's when Commissioner Jenkins should have abstained.
No,
Your son-in-law's in that.
talk about him. We just talked about Cindy.
Okay, I just want to make sure that no one gives you any grief after the fact.
But there's no
We weren't voting on him.
conflict of him.
I just want to make sure
Okay.
for my friend.
Now we're going to move on to board and committee appointments. Treasure Coast Community Action Agency Advisory Board appointment.
There was 3 applicants, and Ms. Christina Georges received 4 votes, and because she is an employee for the Children's Services Council, you have to waive the prohibition of section 112.3137 if you're going to appoint her.
So moved.
Second.
I don't need to put my light on.
You'll hit
Okay. Can you just explain, what that section is and how that works?
No, before. Elizabeth Linehan with the County Attorney's Office. The statute section that is cited, Section 112.3137, is a prohibition about, with the Commission on Ethics that they regulate for doing business with your agency. Provision 12 of that section allows for a waiver of the prohibition of doing business with your agency for appointment to advisory bodies if the appointing body waives that prohibition once you've been informed of the nature of the conflict. So that's why we've informed you that she works for the Children's Services Council, who does business with Martin County, and so if you waive that prohibition, then she can be appointed.
So is that two separate motions?
It is two separate motions,
Okay,
yes, please.
move that we waive the prohibition.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Move to appoint Christine Georges.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to public hearing. Number 1, legislative public hearing to consider adoption of comprehensive plan text amendment CPA 20-03 Aquarius Land Holdings. Ms. Maria Jose.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, I'm Maria Jose, Senior Planner with the Growth Management Department. My presentation today will be regarding CPA 20-03 Aquarius Land Holdings, which is a proposed site-specific text amendment. The first public hearing for this plan amendment was conducted before the local planning agency on September 3rd, 2020. The second public hearing was conducted before the BCC on October 13, 2020. So today's hearing is the third public hearing, which is the adoption hearing for this proposed amendment. And this proposed amendment is requested by Aquarius Land Holdings, LLC. So the proposed amendment is a site-specific amendment to Policy 4.1B21 to permit residential development on the 34.96 acre subject site that's located on the north side of Southeast Cove Road and west side of Southeast Willoughby Boulevard. So here in this map, we can see the subject site highlighted in blue. The proposal amends the sub-area policy pertaining to this particular subject site. This site has core future land use, commercial office residential future land use, along with core 2 zoning, which permit residential uses at 10 units per acre, as well as office uses. So Policy 4.1B21 currently limits the site's non-residential use to 365,904 square feet and does not allow residential use on the property. However, the proposed amendment would allow residential development as permitted by core future land use, limited to 340 trips. The Martin County Public Works Department staff reviewed the transportation study submitted with this text amendment. The limitation to 340 net outbound PM peak hour trips aligns with the long-range transportation planning assumptions. So what we see here is the applicant's proposed amendment. So we can see the text where it says the tract of real property, where it describes the subject property. The portion where it says limited to 365,000 square feet of non-residential use is stricken out. It says we're adding shall be developed consistent with the assigned future land use designation. Provided, however, the net outbound PM peak hour trips generated by all uses shall be limited to 340 trips. Trip generation shall be determined at final site plan for any use based on the then current ITE trip generation manual rates. Staff does not recommend approval of the text of this text that's proposed by the applicant. However, staff recommends an alternate proposal that provides more clarification. So here we can see staff's recommendation, where just like the applicant's version, it refers to the 340 trips. And staff recommends referring to the land development regulations. So the property shall be developed consistent with the future land use designation. However, the net outbound PM peak hour trips generated by all uses on the subject property shall be limited to 340 trips, as demonstrated during the review of final site plans consistent with Article 5, Division 3 of the Martin County Land Development Regulations. So this proposed amendment will limit the net outbound PM peak hour trips generated by all uses, whether it's residential or office or anything or a combination, all uses to 340 trips, as we see here, instead of limiting non-residential development to 365,000 square feet. Roadway improvements have now occurred in the area of the subject site. So that includes the expansion of Canner Highway from a 4-lane road to a 6-lane road. Also, PD&E study for the widening of Southeast Cove Road to a 4-lane divided facility is scheduled to start in FDOT's 2021-2022 fiscal year. Also, this subject site is within the primary urban service district, and all mandatory public facilities and services are available. So staff recommendation is approval. The amendment only applies to the subject site. No matter what usage the subject site may have in the future, the net outbound PM peak hour trips will be limited to 340. So considering all factors such as the existing availability of capital and public facilities, staff recommends approval of this site-specific text amendment. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any lights on for questions for staff. Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Yes, good morning. Dina Freeman here with HJA Design Studio, Michael Houston, and also legal representation with Tyson Waters. I have proof of notice as required for the third public hearing. Just like to say that we obviously concur with staff. We have staff recommendation, positive recommendation for approval. It was considered before the LPA on September 3rd with a positive recommendation. It was considered on September 28th by the board with a positive recommendation to be transmitted to the state and all the agencies. We've had positive, have we not got the mic working? Sorry, I didn't want to touch it too much. I think I'm too short, that's the problem. So we had a positive recommendation from the board, then we had a positive recommendation from the agencies, the DEO, FDOT, FDEP, FWC, South Florida Water Management, and the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. And obviously today we've got a positive recommendation from staff. So we respectfully request that the text amendment be approved by the board. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody have questions for the applicant? Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick question. So you also agree with staff's recommended alternative language?
We do, absolutely. We work with staff closely.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, comes back to the board.
I'm sure I'd move approval with the staff's alternate language that was supplied here at the hearing today.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to departmental number 1, Office of Management and Budget, items which require board approval with Miss Jennifer Manning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Jennifer Manning, OMB Director. The first item on the agenda is permission to accept the Community Services Block Grant in the amount of $116,936. This is for a 2-year period. This will help for crisis assistance, eviction notice, rental assistance, and deposit assistance. The second item is permission to approve the budget resolution for the remaining CARES funding. We were allocated $28 million overall for Martin County. We came to the board in September to allocate $7 million, and now we are wanting to allocate the remaining balance. To date, we have received $12 million, a little over $12 million, and the remaining balance of $15 million should be coming forth as we ask for reimbursements.
Okay. Commissioner Hurd?
Generally, how have we spent the 12 million that we've already received, and how do we anticipate spending the additional 15 million?
Okay, I know in the past, George just came to the board and allocated funds for the nonprofits. We have allocated funds for businesses. There's a dashboard that he has. I don't have it on hand right now, but we have also, the nonprofits have come forward and thanking the commissioners for the funding. They've done quite a bit for our municipalities as well, and for the county itself as far as maintaining, sanitary conditions so that we can, avoid the coronavirus as much as we can. So it's broken out as George has presented to the board, where he allocated for tourism as well. So there's a lot of areas that we funded so far.
And is there a provision for use it or lose it?
Yes, so we made sure we're not going to lose it. Okay. So we have allocated all the funding that is required, that was granted to us, so we will not lose any money. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Commissioner Smith?
Madam Chair, Jennifer, thank you. George, thank you, and the entire team, thank you. I have heard nothing but amazing comments from the community talking about their end of working with us and having it happen and go through. So great job you all did. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Is that a motion by someone?
Yeah, I'll move approval.
She left.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Manning. Okay, we're going to move on to departmental number 3, Parks and Recreation Boat Ramp Program Update.
And here he is.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Abate, Parks and Recreation Director. Hope you enjoyed our Sand Dune Cafe beignets this morning. Thank you very much.
I'm 4 in.
Good.
They're good, hot or cold, I might say.
Okay, good. Thank you. So today we're talking about, at your request, about our Martin County Boat Ramp Capital Improvement Program. I just want to give you a brief overview of where we are in the process and what the plan is over the next 5 years. So we have 12 boat ramps in the county, as you can see at the various locations on the screen. And we have a map of the locations of all the boat ramps. And we have, if you notice, we have one on the left side at J&S Fish Camp, just near Lake Okeechobee. Most of the boat ramps are on the east side of the county. Our goals for our boat ramp program through our CIP is to, priority is to design for resiliency, construct for long-term life cycle sustainability, look at the adjacent boat ramp parking in conjunction with the construction of a ramp, try to replace the floating fixed docks with floating docks when possible, and address the larger recreational boats that have an impact on the ramp through power loading, their size, look at the ADA implementation. Yes, sir.
I was reading in what's power loading for
So
those of
power-
us that don't have boats?
So power loading is the act of when a boater comes into a dock and they back their trailer down and they throttle their boat and their propeller creates wash, and we wash out some of our boat ramps and we undermine the boat ramp by washing the sediment out, and it causes issues has caused many issues with our boat ramps.
How would you get the boat on if you couldn't throttle the boat into the trailer? How would you get it on otherwise?
Filter your engine up and pull your boat with the rope.
Oh.
Yeah.
The old way was to do this.
You have
The new
rank
way.
that I see.
a winch assembly. So right now they do power load up on their trailer, and it causes issues. So those are some signage we're considering putting in for our future boat ramps. So that's what power load is. Good question. Thank you. And then of course, finally, we would also apply for any matching grants that are available through Waterways Assistance Grants, like the Florida Inland Navigation District or the Florida Boaters Improvement Program. Those are some more of the goals with our CIP.
Before you drive, I'm sure. Thank you. Because Ed jumped in on the power loading, and you really quickly said ADA design elements. So I know most of us know the answer to this, but we are required to design and build to ADA standards.
Yeah, for all of our projects, including boat ramps, correct. So the approaches from docks leading to boat ramps, etc. Well, from the time you park your boat to the time you get on your boat, we have to consider all the ADA implications for that.
The ramp, the floating docks, the approach ramps
Correct.
to the floating docks, all of that
Yep.
has to meet those standards.
Yeah. When we do a renovation or in this case, we're replacing a boat ramp. So the 5-year schedule for the boat ramp program, and if you see here that Sanskrit Park is our top priority for the boat ramp. Those are our estimated cost and permitting for Sanskrit. Sanskrit Park does have 2 boat ramps, one on the east and west side. And so that's a complete replacement of the program with all the goals that we went over in the previous page. That would be our estimated cost for that boat ramp. But we're going to go into a little more detail of each boat ramp, not too much, but so we evaluated all of our boat ramps, and we implemented the boat ramp CIP program about 2 years ago, and then we started the process of permitting Sanskrit first, and now we're going through permitting of the Stewart Causeway, and then we'll go to Jensen, Charlie Layton. So we started the funding cycle in FY20, and we're in 21 now, and we'll continue that. And we did that as a result of all the deep history of us spending money, lots of money on boat ramp repair through the high usage of our boat ramps throughout the many years that our program's been around. So if you look at the current status of our boat ramps, you'll see the Seagrass survey for Sanskrit Park boat ramp is complete, and the topo survey is also complete. The engineering firm has been selected, and right now we're 60% through permitting. And we are estimating based on our consultants, our Zoom call with them a few weeks ago. Aptim is the name of our consultant, and they APTIM, and they're estimating that it will be 6 months to get through all the permitting required by the various agencies, and that's providing that we stay within the footprint that we are currently in, and we're not going to do anything outside of that, which we don't plan on doing that. So then the Stewart Causeway. You'll see that we've started the Seagrass survey is complete. The topo survey is complete. And then we're issued a request for proposals through the engineering firms under our continuing services contracts to Public Works to begin that process again of going through that process. And then we'll go into design and then issuing permits. And then we'll do that for Jensen Causeway so our goal is to construct this year at some point when we're done with permitting Sanskrit Park. And the good news is because we had enough foresight to put Sanskrit, Stewart Causeway, and Jensen out to bid, when we did it for our continuous services contracts, those elements are added by Public Works. We don't have to bid Sanskrit. So once design is done, we can go immediately to construction, which is the good news for these first few projects. So we'll see, but Sanskrit will be ultimately the model boat ramp is our goal. So you'll see Sanskrit is top priority. We're estimating at $850,000 for a complete replacement. The notes I have on the bottom, it's highly attended, excessive power loading as described earlier, replacing the fixed docks, addressing ADA issues, limited parking, and of course there's 2 ramps. Right now we have available funding of $450,000. It's considered a major renovation. And in this year's CIP program, we would look to fund the remaining part of that. Now, as a part of this boat ramp program, and when we look into the parking, we may have to address some of the parking issues. We do have the Parks Paving Program, and we'll be looking at allocating our funds for that program, which were allocated to the golf course last year, to Sanskrit Parks boat ramp to make sure we can address any parking issues that are associated in line with this boat ramp, whether it needs to be raised or things need to be done to it to address all the issues for parking. And then number 2 priority you'll see is Stewart Causeway. It looks like it's the number 1 based on the cracks, but is Stewart Causeway. There's currently no funding available today for that boat ramp, but in the CIP we will address that to have it funded down the road. Again, as we're going through the evaluation right now period of the RFP, our higher level goals, or I talked about earlier, but obviously the docks got to get replaced, ADA issues, addressing parking, replacing the concrete, adding sheet piles, and a sand launch as a part of that project. Jensen Beach Causeway, replacing the docks. There's 2 boat ramps there. ADA issues, extend the ramp, sheet pile, and it's a highly used boat ramp as well, another major renovation. And then on to Charlie Layton Park, which is currently undergoing a master plan right now. We're going through design development, we're pretty far along. But a component of that project is to also to create a renovation of the Charlie Layton Park boat ramp as we go, because the master plan for Charlie Layton Park doesn't include the renovation, but that's a separate engineering.
Kevin, just one moment. Commissioner Campy?
Thank you, Mr. Abate. When you say priority number 4, and when we were looking at your chart, how it's staged out that way, what is your timing in your mind for this boat ramp rehabilitation? You see how, fiscal year 2024?
Yeah. Based on what we're seeing, even based on our prior history of when we replaced the boat ramp at Phipps Park, it's 2 years from beginning to end. From the time you start the seagrass surveys to the time that you finish, it's a 2-year cycle. So we are a year and a half or a year plus, because we start the CIP in 20, into Sanskrit, and we've already started on Stewart. So if we're under construction in 21, which is now, this year, and then we'll hopefully get deep into permitting later this year for Stewart, then we'll be into Jensen, then to Charlie Layton. And that's based on an evaluation by staff based on their current condition and how they rank with these other ramps on their use, on their condition, and so on and so forth.
So are you saying that they are all sort of deteriorating in a nice, orderly pattern like you show here? Because aren't they deteriorating rapidly? Like you and I are working on a master plan, like you said, for Charlie Layton Park, and we're talking about revamping the parking lot and everything else. We're not waiting on all of that stuff till fiscal year 2024. So are you saying that a lot of the improvements that we have planned for this year, calendar year, the boat ramp will have to wait until 2024 just to get started, or it'll be completed in 2024?
Well, here, on this cycle, it would be done in 24. That would be the plan. Ideally, we're going to go through the exercise of Sanskrit first. So if we stay ahead of the game as planned, that'll be done. So if Layton Park's improvements come in 21, 22, the boat ramp will come later. The boat ramp's in good condition, meaning it's usable. It's not like Sanskrit or Stewart Causeway, but it does need to get replaced. All the boat ramps are open right now. There's no boat ramp that's closed. They've been neglected for a very long time. We realized that a couple of years ago through all the many, many years of hundreds of thousands of dollars of repairs of our, in comparison to the beach, our second most highly used asset are our boat ramps. So we need to address them in a formalized program. This is what this attempts to do.
I would agree. Thank you. I'll work with you in the future on that one, even if I have to use some district funds, just to keep it, safe and usable before you get into the major renovation. I want to be able to have it sort of still coordinate with the improvements that we're going to have at the park, not like we do 90% of the park, it's perfect, and then, oh, by the way, the boat ramps, like you said, or especially in Palm City, there's only a few spots to even launch.
Correct.
My other question would be, still no determination on how many out-of-county users we have on some of these facilities, correct? I know that we can't, differentiate between Martin County residents and out-of-county residents because we've used state and federal funding for these projects. I get that. But do you guys have any indication of, what level of usage out-of-county users have?
Well, we...
Like tracking license
plates? There was a white paper when I first was hired that was done on this same topic, and it's pretty significant. But once they fill up, you don't know because the first come, Sanskrit, if you're not there by 9, you're not getting in, so you're done.
Sanskrit, I find, is sort of tucked right into the heart of Martin County,
Highly
If you're coming, but Charlie Layton, if you're coming from our neighbor to the north, sometimes it's easy to drive to Charlie Layton. And then you can imagine if you live on Cornell and you have a boat and you get your kids together and you go over at 9:30 in the morning and there's no parking spaces. A lot of people used to just park, sort of look like they abandoned their trailers on Cornell or on the side streets there, which is a safety issue. But I can imagine the frustration of Martin County local, like within walking distance of this boat ramp, and they show up with their families and it's completely full by 10 a.m. And when you start looking at license plates, you can sense they're not from here.
Yeah, if we get a complaint on boat ramp availability and parking, it is related to why isn't there enough parking for residents? And obviously the answer is as you said earlier, we took funds, several different funding sources for most of these boat ramps, and you can't charge fees differently. If you were to charge a fee, they have to be the same if you were to do that, and you can't say you can't come here.
Right. Is there a statute that would expire on those funds? Some of those boat ramps are 20 years old. Do you ever get to a point where you...
I defer?
Yeah, it would be
Grant assurance.
grant assurances, but also I think it's important to note that Mr. Abate's program here is predicated on the fact that he's going to get additional grant funds.
Well, that's
So
what I was saying.
it's an ongoing cycle, unfortunately.
But here's the thing. It is a catch-22, as Ms. Krista said. If you enhance these boat ramps, which we all want you to do, and the residents do as well, and you create these beautiful, state-of-the-art boat ramps, all you're continuing to do is exacerbate the problem by making other people from other counties say, we don't need to use our own. They have gorgeous boat ramps in Martin. So I'm just wondering, for the amount of money that you would get from Find or elsewhere, is it worth eventually getting to a point where these are ours?
That's a policy decision, right? And so I would, there's enough history in white papers that I've read on this topic on whether you want to control your own boat ramps. I mean, I would imagine you could pay the grants back, and I don't know how that works.
Are there any counties that have their own exclusive boat ramps?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, then that's the answer right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. You have one more light on, is that regarding this?
Sort of, unless you're going to cover it in another piece, Kevin. Taryn, the funding, and when you laid out the funding, the comment you made on funding, like next to beaches, it's our next largest used thing. Are you going to consider these as FARB? Like, are we going to put boat ramps in a FARB program, or are we going to?
Yeah. So it's their own work today. It's
Right.
their own independent CIP sheet just for boat ramps, and the goal is that the funding stays where it's.
Well, so where I'm kind of going to a little bit. So we have some significantly large maintenance items that will always need to be rebuilt. You got your beaches, you got your inlet and you got your boat ramps, right? I mean, I think those are the top three for whether nature does the abuse or use of the physical facility does that. When we get to budget time, or as you're looking at budget, I really want to have the conversation. I know the Economic Council talked to us about inlet funding. I think we ought to talk about inlet funding, beach funding, and ramp funding. And how do we think about long-term 20-year increment, start maybe rethinking how we allocate and where those funds come from?
Yes, sir. That will come to you during like April when we do the CIP.
I didn't know if you had that on your list of things to talk about, but if you don't, if you would, specifically those three.
Certainly.
Because I know some years back we moved some funds around and they were reallocated to different things. And I'd like to have that conversation again as to which funds we use and why. Because in my mind, those three things, they'll never stop needing to be maintained. And so for me, that's like a general MSTU, not MSTU, a regular ad valorem discussion, but we can have that in April.
Yes.
Thank you.
So what's not shown, and if you, just going back to this schedule here, is that's new construction. So obviously when you get past that 5-year mark, you're going to be back into rehabilitation. So part of the goal of the CIP is to get these boat ramps over the next 5 years or longer, there's 12 of them, to where they need to be, and then the CIP becomes a program, like a FAR program, a fixed asset replacement, where we are maintaining them to the standard that they deserve. That's the goal. And finally, way out west near Lake Okeechobee is our JNS Fish Camp boat ramp, which also needs another major renovation. You can see the pavers need to be replaced with concrete. It is used out there, believe it or not. Our closest staff is at Tower Powers, but we go out there and we do what we can with it. But it's definitely not as highly attended as the other four, but certainly is also in need of replacement. So that was the last boat ramp. And again, like as I said earlier, our goal is to work closely with the consultant to meet those larger goals that I kind of have up on the screen earlier, to make sure that we come home with a good program. And I know I've been asked before about permitting and timeframes. We have asked our consultant, can we expedite these? And they are doing everything they can to move them as quick as they can. But, I recall in 2017 when we went through it at the same program, the same thing over at Phipps Park. It was 2 years and I was pushy, and it took 2 years, period. The permit process for these through the different agencies, it has to run its course, unfortunately. And so we're not going to, but again, and kudos to Public Works, the good news is we don't have to bid it. So there's a nice time saver there.
When it comes to the permitting, when you suggest that, it's up to the state or federal agencies, it looks like Sandsbrit and Stewart have started the permit process, but Charlie Layton and JS have not, right? So if Commissioner Campy wants this project completed by the fiscal year 24, then we would have to start the permitting process by the end of this year. If you're saying it takes, so my question is there a way, that we start strategically putting these in for permitting so that we're not waiting for a permit for a year and a half once we've funded the construction?
Sure. So yes, so we have $450,000 right now. So I think this costs us about $50,000 to do the whole thing. So you figure 10% of a boat ramp on design and engineering service fees, permitting, etc. Right? So we could, we could take, because it's in the CIP today, we could go through and say, okay, we're going to go through the first 5 now, if we want to. We have an engineering services firm on continuing services contract, and we could say, we'd like you to start this for all 5 of them, and then put the construction dollars in CIP, knowing that we have 5 on our queue. The good news about that is that we start to design a very similar boat ramp, and they're all going to be uniquely different and have different requirements, of course. But we could start that process now and get way ahead of the game. It's really funding. It's really what it comes down to, funding.
Okay, Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, my top priority is Sanskrit Park, and I want to do everything that's possible in order to expedite the construction there. So what can be done in order to, so you talked about Phipps Park, using that as an example, but Phipps Park had a federal component that doesn't exist at Sanskrit. The Army Corps had a huge interest in Phipps permitting. So that's not going to be the case with Sanskrit. So how can we speed up permitting, and how can we speed up construction?
So, from my understanding, this is just a short 2-week ago conversation with Aptin, APTIM, the company, our consultant, is that we are in permitting right now through the Corps, and through the state, DEP, and we're through permitting. We're in that process right now. They're not seeing any issues. So for us, here's what the process was. Public Works decided to start the permit, give them the permits at 60%, so they can make their comments, instead of giving the permits at 80 or 90%, and then make comments and have to come back and make changes. So we went with 60% and said, tell us what we need to do, so when it comes back, we can be done. And so that's what we did, that as a strategy to expedite the process. And then secondly, as I said earlier, because we already have these first 3 boat ramps under a continuous services line item, meaning we put it in the bid, we don't have to bid it. So we'll be ahead of the game, meaning we should be able to hand a set of bid docs, construction drawings, to our company and say, give us a quote, and then go build it. We've done the permitting. So
And when do you expect construction to be completed in Sanskrit?
I didn't get the time frame on how long it takes to construct a boat ramp, but I'm pretty sure, I recall Phipps being 6 months.
Yeah, and Commissioner Hurd, to your point, one of the obstacles we're running into is some of these federal agencies are not yet active, if you will. And so we don't have the opportunity like we did in the past to reach out or contact them in person or go to Tallahassee. I mean, we've got these constraints kind of set up with us. So we're doing everything we can, but I think that that's part of your challenge, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm a pretty pushy person, and I'm always asking. So I think the consultant realizes that, and so, but it's in permitting, so that's good. So again, if we want to get ahead of the next 4, we want to get ahead of them. I don't know if that is a board decision, that we have the funding and we want to allocate if we want to do that.
Yeah, the board would need to tell us to utilize those funds, and we would just take the money from reserves and bring it forward so that we can go ahead and get the design done, and then, we can replenish those funds as we move forward. So it sounds like you need another 2 or 250?
We have 450 now available, about 448. To do the next, I would guess that it would, to do 4 boat ramps, because Sanskrit is funded, to do the next 4 would cost you $200,000. So then you still have some funding left for construction. And that is an estimate.
And one more question about Sanskrit is that I know that additional parking has always been a goal, and there was a proposal to put additional parking on the other side of St. Lucie Boulevard, which sounded like a good idea to me until I visited the site. And Commissioner Hetherington, did you ever go there?
I have. I've met with the
neighborhood?
the Quinton residents,
Yeah.
and they are not in favor
It's
of.
a terrible idea.
And not only that, it's a really bad, this is not a boat ramp issue, but it's something that we've been working on with engineering. The crosswalk there, right on that curve, is really terrible. I think that would be a safety hazard to have people crossing on that curve. We're already trying to do some things to illuminate and redo that crosswalk. Having people go back and forth on that curve would be a terrible safety hazard.
So we're not considering that any longer, are we?
That wasn't a parks project. I think it was under water utilities.
It's a utilities.
Was looking at the property. So
The last time I met with utilities, we had taken that off the table.
Oh, yeah, I only saw a conceptual design.
Okay, thank you.
But we will look at maximizing the parking at Sanskrit in this project as well at the same time. So if there is an opportunity to be more efficient, we will.
And as far as the $200,000 additional dollars, I think it's money well spent. I think that the boat ramps are
Second.
Man, are they passionate, are our boaters passionate?
So
Good reason.
is that a motion to go ahead and
Sure.
fund the permitting? So a motion by Commissioner Hurd,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Campy.
Well, just to be clear, that we're going to bring up start at least the permitting process on the ones you have on your list, because it is such a long process. There's really, as you said, there's no way to speed it up. So you might as well at least run the permits simultaneously and have them in hand, so that when you do get the funding to actually do the rest of it, we're not sitting around waiting.
Yeah.
Because
As
even
long
if I
as-
use district funds to do the project, you couldn't do it anyway because you don't have the permits.
Well, we want to make sure the grant applications allow for us to do that. So we'll be in conjunction with those requirements.
So the benefit of this, getting the permits done now, is through all the grants and agencies like FBIP, which is the Florida Boaters Improvement Program, and FINE. Especially with FBIP, we found out yesterday we need to be designed. So when we submit for future grants and we want hundreds of thousands of dollars, we need to be permitted, not 60%. So that puts us in a much better position for these future boat ramps. It might be maybe not Sanskrit. Sanskrit might be okay for another source of funding, but certainly for Stewart and the rest along down the road, we could be much better positioned.
Okay, Mary Kay?
I'm just going to ask Commissioner Hurd exactly how she'd like her motion stated.
My motion would be to find funding of $200,000 in order to expedite permitting for the 5 projects.
Thank you.
Seconder?
Done, right?
Well, 4 projects, yeah.
Seconder agrees with that?
I
Yes.
do.
And Commissioner Smith?
Okay, got a whole bunch of questions in there.
Okay.
Let's talk about the funding first. So you talked about the 480,000 or 50,000. That was for capital, or what was that money? What was that money assigned?
So we had over in FY20 and in FY21, we had funds set aside in the CIP for the boat ramps of $250 one year and then $250 this year. We spent 48 on Sanskrit's design. So we have 448 left today.
Okay, so but that 448 is at least before this motion, if that's part of the motion, is dedicated to the construction of Sanskrit.
Yes.
It can be.
Yes.
Yes.
So the money that you're looking for in this motion
Comes from
is
reserves.
another source.
Yes.
I just, because Kevin threw out that, and everybody said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Like, oh.
It'll
I
be
gotta-
on your next OMB.
I get that, but I'm just, for everybody's clarity, you're not gonna, the idea is not to take it from the 480.
Correct.
It'll be to go to reserve or some other source to come up for that funding. Okay, that's fine, or District 7, 12, whatever. Okay.
Just start at the first district, and if you run out of money there, just work your way down.
Yeah, well, you can return my CRA money from like 12 years ago that you stole and put another place too, but that's another conversation. So, Kevin, you did say, and I think I understood, there are core permits and there are state permits, correct?
My understanding, correct.
I'm sorry?
My understanding, that's correct. There's different agencies. I understand that the Corps is going to relinquish some of their permanent responsibilities to the state. That's a transition that's happening now, which is a reason that we're seeing some of the delays. There's a time period of a 45-day quiet time where they gotta let it cure and go through its process. So
A suggestion, if that is to move forward, as we anticipate that it will, and that may mean the Corps is out of the permitting, at least on rebuilds, maybe not on new construction. Do you know if that applies to new construction as well? Like if you were to go build a new boat ramp?
I think there are components, from what I understand, there are components of the federal government's permitting that are going to always remain. And I don't know what those elements are, but I know, from what I understand, there are elements that will go to the state that they'll be responsible for, but the Corps will remain. They'll have some things that they'll always do.
So as another suggestion added on to this whole kind of permit discussion, why don't we get with Coastal? And I'd also be curious as to, on the permitting side, what involvement do we use Coastal for? Because I would think with the Corps, we have a relationship with the Corps from Coastal that might help us when we can't go in person, we can't be seeing people. Secondly, if it is to turn over to the state, and let's just say hypothetically that 95% of the permitting becomes a state oversight review of some sort. Maybe what we ought to be doing is talking to Chloe, talking to our delegation, saying, okay, on rebuilds, it's not like you're permitting a whole new boat ramp. I think it's interesting, like you got to do a seagrass study for an existing boat ramp that we're going to rebuild, that we use every day. And so maybe what there is there's a way to, oh, here he comes. No, it's not good news if he's shown up. Maybe there is a way to talk to the legislature and say, look, for existing boat ramps, is it merely a review that doesn't take 2 years? It's a review of the permit of what you're doing, and maybe it's really a 6-month review or something versus a 2-year permitting process. Just a thought that we have Coastal and whoever look into exactly what's involved in that, and can we propose legislation if that is a barrier? And I'm sure Dawn's going to tell us all the reasons why we can't do that, but
It's a new year.
it just might be helpful, because it seems crazy that for all intents and purposes, it's maintenance. It's not as if we're putting in a brand new site, but we're being treated somewhat as if it were a brand new site with a 2-year permitting process. Anyway, just a thought. And then the other question I had, along with what Taryn was saying relative to the grant applications and whatnot, whether it's the consultant, whether it's whoever, we should find out, is there an expiration on those permits? Do you only get those permits issued for 2 years or 3 years, and do they expire? Do you have to go back and get them? This is a great idea, and having them in place and having everything done up front, so when you go for your grants, you set in a higher ranking than perhaps most other people that you're up against. But are there expirations as well?
Mr. Donaldson.
Yeah, Don Donaldson, Deputy County Administrator. In terms of permits, you're absolutely correct, Commissioner, that all the permits will have a timeline. Typically, it's 2 years. Sometimes you can pay additional funds to have a more in-depth review, which takes a longer time to get it issued. To get like a 5-year permit, and they used to have 10-year permits that you could get allow for construction or even reconstruction. In terms of the federal delegation, which happened this last month to the state, that was only for what they call Section 404 permitting, which is isolated wetlands. Projects that involve navigable waters of the U.S. Will still go to the Corps of Engineers. So the boat ramps that are within the coastal estuarine waters and along the Okeechobee Waterway will still require Corps permitting, which includes commenting from the Fish and Wildlife and the EPA and the other list of agencies. So, but I think in your suggestion of always trying to get general permits or nationwide permits, whether the state or the feds, we can certainly pursue that with Chloe and others on petitioning Jacksonville District or the Corps of Engineers to at least have some regional permits or general permits to allow us to get a quicker action. And they used to have those in the past. They do expire from time to time, and with this transition from the state, I think they put some of that on hold. So we can get back to you on that, but I think those are good suggestions.
Okay, great. I just have a couple comments. One was on Sanskrit Park. Your summary here does not include looking at parking, and some of the comments that I've heard and the feedback was that I don't know what the fix is, but people will come in and not park appropriately, and there were some parking stops or something, and they had been put in or removed, and then it decreases the capacity for the parking. So I would ask that we just look at that parking, particularly since we know that across the street is off the table, that we look at trying to maximize the parking with what we have there. And then the other was on design. This is District 1, but Stewart Causeway, I've heard feedback that even if we are to maintain the existing conditions, the way it's designed is something that is going to consistently be an issue. So when you're looking at design, you're not looking at just replacement, you're looking at additional design methods for those locations, correct?
Correct. So to your first comment with the parking at Sanskrit, when we met with the consultant 2 weeks ago, I had mentioned to him your comment from our conversation that we are going to add the element of parking, the reorientation, the efficiencies, or whatever economy scale we can do with parking into their scope. So they are aware of that and they are doing that. All of the projects will be designed with our goals in mind to make sure that we address the issues at hand. They're all going to be uniquely different based on the winds that are coming out in certain directions, to where the locations are. Some may require more resiliency than others. So certainly because we're repairing, like for instance, Sanskrit or all the other boat ramps, we see the issues. And I believe there's a site visit this week for Stewart Beach, the Causeways boat ramp. So they're out there, because we're going to get a scope of services in line. So we'll address those issues.
Okay, great. I think this item was informational. We don't need to take
There is
any.
a motion on.
Oh, that's right. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Hurd regarding the finding of funding for permitting, and I forget who seconded. Commissioner Campy. So we have a motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Yes, Commissioner Hurd.
I have another question while we're here. Give us an update on the Jensen Beach mooring field.
Right now we're dealing with our floating dock is having an issue right now with the winds that are coming out of the southeast. It's causing the dock to move, so we're trying to address its replacement with something a little bit more sturdy, so that's safer for the folks that come in and moor and make their way to the dock. So we're looking to addressing that issue.
And is that a design problem, a construction problem? Who's bearing responsibility for, if there was a mistake made, who's paying for it?
Mr. Stokas has arrived.
Commissioner George Stokas, Assistant County Administrator. We are working with legal and engineering to address how we're going to rectify the problem. We believe it's due to a design error, so we're working with legal and the company, which is AT, well, I won't even mention the company's name, but the company that designed it, we're working with them to rectify the situation and go through the legal process if necessary. But that meeting, I believe, is occurring this week, if not early next week. So we are on it. We are working toward a resolution.
Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Smith.
No, I'm sorry.
Erroneously. Okay, thank you, Mr. Abate. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. We're going to move on to public comment. Anyone seeing no one in the public for public comment? We're going to go back to commissioner comments. I feel like we just did this, but
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Campy?
Yes, question for staff. I'd like to, and I've been working very diligently with Mr. Stokas and Mr. Merker, but there was an article that came out of Tallahassee recently that the state of Florida is putting approximately $199 million towards broadband and internet voids, areas in rural portions of the state that still do not have what I would consider a basic service, especially now considering that so many people have to work from home or students have to take their classes online from home. We have areas in Martin County that still don't have internet or broadband, and the largest of the internet and broadband providers are not interested in going to those areas. Residents have pushed very hard. I've pushed hard. The biggest brand names that you can think of that deliver these services are just not interested. Even if neighborhoods, I'll give you for instance, if a line runs down Citrus Boulevard, there are neighborhoods that are off of Citrus Boulevard that said they would pay whatever the cost would be for the provider to run the lines east and west off of Citrus into these neighborhoods, and they've said no. Now, I can't really start using district funds, in my opinion, to start bringing broadband. I don't want to, even if it's just not to me the proper use to bring broadband into specific neighborhoods. But I know that I can't. I don't want to anyway. But with that in mind, there's all this talk about, especially under the, the pandemic and all these issues, and I know that Mr. Stokas and I have been working behind the scenes, but I'd like to have an agenda item brought forward where we can put some pressure. Here he is. I was texting you and emailing you, and
But he had no connection.
that's right. I would have, if I was out west in Palm City Farms, I wouldn't have been able to reach you. I just like to have an agenda item where all of my colleagues can hear about it, where we can potentially call in some representatives from some of these companies that are glad to take everyone's money elsewhere. And then if there is approximately $200 million that the state is allocating, or if there's CARES dollars that could be done, ITS Fiber in Indiantown, who is always a willing participant to pitch in with this, they've recently been merged with a much larger company. I've spoken to the representatives at ITS Fiber, and they felt that this merger would give them an even better opportunity to participate. So I don't want to be working behind the scenes from my colleagues. I will commend the two gentlemen that are about to speak. But there's another semester facing students now in college and everything else that cannot take their classes online, and they're just finding out that the next spring semester is going to be online as well. You can't constantly drive to Starbucks or drive to a county library to get your work done. I mean, most of us take this service for granted, but even here in Martin, there's people that don't have it. Mr. Stokas.
I was going to wait for the chair recognition.
I've turned off your light. I thought you had already finished.
Madam Chair, I appreciate Commissioner Campy's comments. We actually have a meeting set up. I believe we're working with Indiantown Telecom, who's merging with another company. We have a meeting set up, I believe, late next week. Be more than happy to bring a board item. I've also reached out to AT&T, Mr. Kotner. He's working to meet with us via Zoom. And we'll be more happy to bring an item and talk about our strategy of how we're going to utilize, work towards getting these, I call them dead areas, illuminated with fiber, and how we're going to work with the state and these private partners to work on that. So we'll be more, but that item wouldn't be able to come forward till probably February at the soonest, if that's okay with this, Commissioner.
Okay, Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, and not to prolong the conversation, only to add, we just, last year, Mike, we did a tower down mid-South County because we had a void down there.
We're doing it now.
We're doing it. And we're doing that, right?
Yeah. Mike Merker, for the record, Chief Information Officer. We are almost complete with that particular tower, but that is not for internet services. That is for public safety radio services.
And is there any way, once that's built, to put public carriers on there?
If the public carriers approach us, we are happy to have a discussion with them about.
Okay, so for that, when we have this agenda item, can we also bring that component in? All I'm asking you to be prepared for is, I'd like to have that conversation too, as to all the alternatives that would be available to us, just so that we have different things to talk about.
Madam Chair, 2 points. One,
Yes.
I know that we mentioned AT&T. The example that I was using on Citrus Boulevard was not AT&T. It was the other one. So I know nothing. I haven't had any contact with AT&T specifically. And then I think to Commissioner Smith's point, that's cell service, and I'm talking in the ground broadband or fiber optic internet.
There is a component of that, Ed.
No, I've heard that that's something that's in the future, but I don't think, and I appreciate what you're saying, I don't think that the people that I've spoken to out there, that's not the option that they're looking for, because there's a speed issue and it's hard to run businesses from that. That's still in its early stages, that you could run internet, like your cell phone could give you internet access. They're talking much higher speeds and much more dedicated data, whatever. I'll leave that to Mr. Merker.
There are capabilities from a technological standpoint that could fulfill the vision that Commissioner Smith has, but it's up to the carriers as to whether or not they want to deploy those technologies. Is it financially feasible for them to do that? Is there a good technology environment? Is there a good physical environment? So that's really on them.
And it's
to
also
make, to make those
expensive for the
determinations.
consumer.
Correct.
Well, we'll have this conversation
Why
again.
don't, yeah, we bring that back and have the conversation when it comes back?
Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, Mr. Merker, while you're here, we have discontinued the use of Zoom, and I heard that one of the reasons why was because we don't have the technological capabilities in this room to continue to do that. Is that true? And what would be necessary in order to advance our technical capabilities so that we can have Zoom in this meeting, in this room?
That's a great question, Commissioner. There are a couple of things that we would need to consider in order to have Zoom in this room. Do you want to have voice only, or do you want to have voice and video? Because there are two different ways that we could approach the situation. If we wanted to have voice only, the technological challenges are pretty low. We could probably put something in here fairly easily and very inexpensively, if not free.
And if it's the will of the board, I think we need to change our rules and procedures to allow for that and what the parameters would be. I've heard from various commissioners that part of the concern is that individuals they're giving you a phone number on Zoom. There's no opportunity to identify who the individual is, whether they even are a resident of Martin County. There's some problematic or things that we need. Now, we can't require or make individuals fill out a request to speak form with their correct name. Obviously, folks can be alias or whatever they decide to do, but that's really been the concern. So today, the only thing we could do would allow phone in. But the phone in, again, all we get is a phone number. We don't have the ability to identify those individuals.
My greater concern is limiting public participation, simply because there are so many people who are unwilling to come into this building, and I certainly understand. So my priority is, there are going to be kinks, yeah, there will be, but more importantly, I think that we must afford the public ways to participate in our public meetings. If we're going to have them here, and instead of the Lake Library, then we have to make some sort of provision for the public to join us here.
We do allow still for the emails.
I mean, that's not immediate. That's not direct. There needs to be some direct way for them to interact with us rather than an indirect way.
Commissioner, anything beyond voice would pose a great challenge from a technology and a cost standpoint. I think we've been lucky and fortunate that we've been able to have meetings in the Armstrong wing of the library.
Let's go back.
But that room is equipped for much better, at least for this kind of thing. So that's.
Commissioner Campy.
Be very happy to return to the Blake Library. I think it's a much more safe location for us.
Thank you. Had your light on?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. I agree that, well, let me say this. I think voice only does allow our residents to participate in the meeting. So, and like you said, it would be not a high bar, not expensive, if potentially wouldn't cost us anything. Even in the weeks of meetings that we had leading up to the end of the year, you weren't getting a lot of comments on Zoom, but it was there as an option. I think the pandemic, a lot of people, especially towards New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, were saying, oh, thank God 2020 is over. It's going to be so much different in 2021. Not necessarily. I mean, we're all hopeful. But so under those really unique set of circumstances that you had to, and I commend you for getting Zoom together and allowing people to participate. I agree with Commissioner Hurd. The last thing we want to do is not give people the opportunity to participate. So if it requires a little additional effort on our part to be in this facility, I don't want to eliminate the Zoom option. The concepts that Ms. Krista mentioned, we had a conversation about it beforehand. Anyone can come in here and write Mickey Mouse on a slip. We're not checking IDs on people. I didn't know if there is a prohibition of people coming to speak to us must be county residents. I don't believe that is a case. Public comment is public comment. If someone is interested in enough that they would want to participate in our meeting, to say something to us, I'm more than happy to hear it. I know the staff is more than happy to hear it. So even if it's just simply a perception, the perception should be that we are including anyone that wants to address us. I don't think any of the 5 of us are afraid to hear comments from anyone. And if it starts to become so, I think when we allowed people to email, and then we had Mr. Stokas and you and Ms. Beaupre reading hours of email comment, that is, as far as I'm concerned, crosses the line of public participation and hijacks the meeting. But allowing people to Zoom in, especially very realistically, being concerned to come out and to come into the room and to participate. So I'm with Commissioner Hurd that if not by next meeting, as soon as you can, have the ability to at least have people that could be watching the meeting Zoom in their voice comments only. And if that needs to be a motion, I'll make it a motion.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. Ms. Krista, do you have any comments?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Woods? Okay, so our upcoming Board of County Commission meetings are January 12th is a regular meeting, February 2nd a regular meeting, and February 4th will be a joint city, school, and Village of Indiantown meeting. And with that, we have reached the end of our first meeting of the new year, and we are adjourned.